Lloyd Wright is considered by many to be America's greatest architect. He designed over 1,100 projects during his life, and half of them were built. But who was he? What was the man behind those buildings? Well, I'm here at his first home in Oak Park to find out. I'm hitting the road, searching for answers and finding great design. It's a quest for beauty, function, and of course, inspiration. If you want to learn about the early years of Frank Lloyd Wright's life as an architect, there's one place to go. His original home and studio right outside of Chicago in Oak Park, Illinois. Each year, roughly 80,000 people make their way to see the first home Wright built for himself and his first wife in 1889, when he was just 22. The home is not the stereotypical Wright home. I noticed that right away. But the house does show hints of Wright's later works in the placement of the fireplace at the center of the home, the large amounts of art glass, and the lack of attic space. Lauren Finch of the Frank Lloyd Wright Preservation Trust gave me a tour of the home and helped to give me a better understanding for why Wright's home has become such a popular destination. So this is basically the place where it all started.
The first 20 years of his career was right here in Oak Park. And this is where the Prairie School of Design was developed, and just so much history comes from this house. That's why it's so celebrated.
But before living in Oak Park, Wright spent the latter part of his childhood in Wisconsin, where he learned to appreciate nature while working on his mother's family farm. When it came time to go to college, Wright attended the University of Wisconsin and studied engineering. But after a short time, Wright decided to leave college. In 1887, he headed to Chicago at the age of 19.
What brought him to Chicago? Because that seems like a strange place from Wisconsin.
Yeah, it is, but actually after the Great Fire of Chicago, many architects converged on Chicago. So that's why we have such great architecture in the city. They came to rebuild the city, and so many came here, and Frank Lloyd Wright was just one of them. So he came down here to Chicago, worked for Silsby as a draftsman, for not really that long, for less than a year, and then he worked his way into Adler and Sullivan, one of the best architecture firms here in Chicago. And Frank Lloyd Wright was just such a confident man, and Sullivan saw this man and knew he had great things. And after just a short time as a draftsman, he moved his way up in the company.
In 1889, Wright made a deal with Adler and Sullivan to work exclusively for them if they would lend him money to build a home, the home in Oak Park, for his bride, Catherine Tobin. While Wright built the home, he did not stay with Adler and Sullivan for as long as expected.
He was let go from Adler and Sullivan. Frank Lloyd Wright, he had done some moonlighting. He wasn't supposed to, but he did that. And
so basically he worked for other people?
Worked for other people, sometimes under assumed names as well.
Really?
Yes, because he wasn't supposed to be doing that. So sometimes...
Was it to gain extra money? Or
to gain extra money, yes. He also had his own ideas, and to gain some extra money, he worked on this side as well. And the story goes, though there are many, this story isn't written down, and there are many different interpretations. Some people knew Sullivan knew Frank Lloyd Wright was doing this and nothing ever happened. He let him go on. But as the story goes, Frank Lloyd Wright actually built a house just a few blocks from where Sullivan lived. And as Sullivan was walking by one time, he said, "That looks like a young architect Frank Lloyd Wright's work," and then found out he was doing the moonlighting and had to let him go. So that's the story.
After being let go by Adler and Sullivan, Wright began working on his own. The homes he designed were radical for his time, as was his involvement in the process of designing each home.
It's a common misperception that Frank Lloyd Wright stuff is minimalistic. But really, there's a high attention to detail in all of them.
Frank Lloyd Wright designed everything. Not only he would choose the site, he would build the home, he would design out everything from the outside of the home, the inside of the home, the furniture, down to the napkin rings, and sometimes even the dress the hostess, the wife of the home would wear.
The dress?
The dress. He would design everything. Everything was an ideal space, and everything. He had been known to, if he would come over to a house he had designed, he has been known to move furniture back to where he had originally had it planned to be. People say a lot of his clients said that they worked for him, but these are the people who really truly appreciated the work he was doing, and it was an honor for them to work with him.
So he designed the furniture in the homes.
In the home.
Many were built in, correct?
Many were built in. That's very much the Prairie style as well. The built-in furniture, which was not known back in the Victorian time. Victorian furniture, you had a lot of the chairs and you know, the couches and everything. So having built-in furniture was quite radical as well.
One of Wright's great influences was nature. When looking at Wright's art glass, it looks like geometric patterns, but many of those geometric patterns are believed to be representations of things in nature, such as flowers or wheat. Wright also oriented his buildings according to the layout of the land.
He believed that any building, you can't just pick a plan out of a book and build the house anywhere. The building had to come from the ground and had to belong there. He never believed in building a house on top of a hill. That wasn't the place for it. It was right below the hill, or right below the top of the hill. So he didn't believe in that. Things had to come from nature. He was very in tune with his surroundings.
While today Frank Lloyd Wright is known to be a groundbreaking architect, he was not always appreciated. There were periods in his life where he lost favor due to some of the choices he made in his personal life and the radical nature of his style. But that didn't keep Wright from appreciating himself.
Did he feel like he was an amazing artist, or was he very humble?
He felt as though he was the world's greatest architect. And
really?
Yes, and many people will agree with that. He was very revolutionary, and definitely here, we call him the great American architect. And he really did too, the American form of architecture. He felt that, you know, you have the great, you know, the Gothic cathedrals, and you have the Greek and Roman structures. He felt America needed its own form of architecture, and that's what he set out to do, and that's what he accomplished.
Whether or not you like his style, there's no doubt that Frank Lloyd Wright was a great architect. When walking through his home, you can begin to see his genius. But it's not until you step outside and walk down the streets of Oak Park that it really hits you. Placed between large Victorians, Wright's homes stick out as if they'd been built years later. But really, they were built during the same time period. And as you look at his homes, it becomes obvious. Wright was far ahead of his time. He might have been right when he said he was America's greatest architect. The Frank Lloyd Wright Preservation Trust offers tours of the Roby House and Frank Lloyd Wright's original home and studio, in addition to offering maps, which show the location of Wright's homes in Oak Park. To discover more about those, visit wrightplus.org. For extra information about where I've been and what I've learned, visit my website, www.askthedecorator.com.